Imagine holding a single penny, a penny so ordinary, so forgettable, that millions of Americans have brushed it aside without a second thought. Now imagine discovering that this same coin, if struck with the right errors, could be worth more money than most people earn in a lifetime. Some collectors whisper about it. Others hunt for it obsessively. And today, you're about to learn why the 1971 no-mint mark Lincoln cent has become one of the most electrifying, heart-stopping discoveries in modern coin collecting. Because the truth is this: a coin you might already own, a coin hiding in your old change jar or tucked in a childhood piggy bank, has sold in top condition for an astonishing $244,000. And under certain rare conditions, collectors believe its errors could push its value into the realm of millions. Yes, millions of dollars for a single 1-cent coin. So the question is simple: what makes the 1971 no-mint mark penny so dangerous, so mysterious, and so explosively valuable? Let's begin. Picture the early 1970s. The United States Mint is operating at full throttle. Billions of pennies flow from the presses, each one stamped with the iconic portrait of Abraham Lincoln. But in 1971, something strange happened, something subtle, something only the sharpest eyes ever caught. Because while these coins were mass-produced in Philadelphia with no mint mark, a small percentage slipped through the system carrying bizarre distortions, doubling, misalignments, and microscopic anomalies that transformed an everyday cent into a staggering treasure. And here's the twist that collectors love: these aren't fantasy stories. These aren't myths. These errors have been authenticated, certified, fought over at auctions, and purchased by serious investors who know exactly what they're looking at. But most people, they have no idea. You might be wondering, how does a common penny suddenly become a powerhouse worth hundreds of thousands of dollars? The answer begins with one word: doubling. The 1971 no-mint mark Lincoln cent is home to one of the most dramatic and coveted double-die obverse errors ever discovered. Imagine the date, the word liberty, and the phrase "in God we trust" appearing as if they were shadowed or stamped twice. To the untrained eye, it looks almost ghost-like, as if the coin carries an echo. But to collectors, that echo is the sound of opportunity. Because this doubling is not just minor. It's bold. It's unmistakable. It's the type of error that turns a penny into a legend. And then there's the condition factor. You see, it isn't enough for the coin to merely have the double die obverse. The real fortune appears when that error is paired with pristine, untouched surfaces. No scratches, no discoloration, no wear. When one of these 1971 double die cents appears in near perfect condition, bidding wars erupt like lightning. Auctions heat up. Collectors hold their breath. And one unforgettable sale shattered expectations when a stunning example reached as high as $244,000. Now pause for a moment. Ask yourself, how many 1971 pennies have you handled in your lifetime? How many have passed through your hands without a second glance? How many might still be sitting in a jar, quietly aging, carrying the potential to rewrite your financial story? But the plot thickens, because not all valuable 1971 no-mint mark cents look the same. Some carry a secondary doubling that affects the model. Others show die deterioration that creates unusual ripples along the rim. There are even rumored transitional anomalies, minute inconsistencies in metal flow, strike pressure, and die wear that experts still debate to this day. Each one adds a layer of intrigue. Each one adds potential value. And each one reminds us that the minting process, though mechanical, is never perfect. And those imperfections, well, they're what make fortunes possible. Let's take this suspense up another notch. Because the real thrill comes from the idea that most people don't know how to spot the jackpot. So let's talk about what to look for. The double die obverse error is the crown jewel. Focus on the date 1971. Under magnification, the numbers should show clear separation, almost like a second outline. Liberty should appear thicker, ghosted, or slightly offset. In God we trust may appear doubled, and the effect is strong enough that even inexperienced collectors can identify it with the right amount of care. If you spot that doubling, your heartbeat should quicken. Next, check the fields, the flat surfaces of the coin. Does it still shine with original mint luster? Do the details remain crisp? Because every touch, every scratch, every moment in circulation chips away at potential value. A perfect error is rare. A perfect error from 1971 is almost unheard of. And that's why the absolute best examples ignite six-figure bidding wars and push experts to predict million-dollar potential as populations shrink and demand skyrockets. But even if your coin isn't flawless, don't dismiss it. Lower-grade errors still sell for hundreds, sometimes thousands. The right collector will pay handsomely for a strong double-die example, even with signs of use. And now we return to the question that has gripped collectors for decades. Why are these coins so elusive? Because unlike some modern coins with well-documented error batches, the 1971 double-die cents were scattered across the country in unpredictable patterns. No one knows exactly how many exist. Some believe only a few dozen high-grade examples survived. Others argue there could be hidden hoards still waiting in old coffee cans and dresser drawers. That uncertainty, combined with the skyrocketing demand for dramatic errors, creates a perfect storm, the kind of storm that transforms a simple penny into a symbol of hope for collectors everywhere. Imagine the moment someone first discovered one. The confusion. The curiosity. The realization that the doubling wasn't damage or wear, but a genuine minting anomaly. Imagine the shock when early sales began climbing into the tens of thousands. Then the hundreds of thousands. And imagine the thought that follows every major discovery. If one exists, what else might still be out there? And that's the magic of this hobby. You never know when a life-changing coin might fall into your hands. The 1971 no-mint mark Lincoln cent teaches us a powerful lesson. Hidden treasures still circulate among us. Rare opportunities still pass through our palms. And sometimes, the biggest rewards appear in the smallest, most unassuming places. So here's your call to action. Go find your jars. Open the boxes you haven't touched in years. Search your pocket change. Look through your old collection with new eyes. Because the next extraordinary discovery, the next six-figure sale, the next million-dollar penny, could be waiting for you right now. And when you hold that coin up to the light, when you see that unmistakable doubling, when you feel that electric spark of possibility, you'll understand exactly why the 1971 no-mint mark cent has become one of the most thrilling, sought-after treasures in American coin history. Imagine holding a coin so ordinary, so common, so forgettable, that you almost drop it back into the change jar. But then, in a split second, you see something. A tiny detail. A small imperfection. And suddenly, that same coin, the 1984 Lincoln cent, transforms from a simple penny into a life-changing discovery worth hundreds of thousands, even reported in some cases to reach values approaching $1 million. 1 cent turned into a fortune. And the wildest part? It's still out there. Waiting. Hiding. Maybe in your house right now. Most people never look twice at a copper-colored penny from the 1980s. But the collectors who know the truth? They treat this coin like a loaded treasure chest. Because beneath the date 1984, right next to that tiny D mint mark, lies a mystery that shook the coin world and continues to stun collectors to this day. A mystery made of errors, misstrikes, doubled features, and minting anomalies so striking that they can catapult a 1-cent coin into six-figure territory. Some of the most desirable examples have sold for well over $800,000 in pristine condition. Think about that for a moment. $844,000 for a penny. So the question becomes, what exactly is hiding inside the 1984 Lincoln cent? What makes this coin so coveted, so dangerous to ignore, so potentially life-altering that collectors check every single one they find? And what would it feel like if the next fortune discovered in a pocket, purse, or dresser drawer belonged to you? To understand the power behind this coin, you have to journey back to a time when the United States Mint was pushing out billions of pennies every year. Machines hummed, dies slammed copper-plated zinc planchets at lightning speed, and quality control fought desperately to keep up. But in 1984, something slipped through those machines. Something the Mint never intended, but collectors now hunt with relentless passion. Picture this. A die used to strike Lincoln's face begins to shift, ever so slightly. Not enough for the human eye to notice during production, but enough that, when the metal is struck, parts of the design land twice. A second outline appears. A doubled shape. Most famously, the so-called doubled ear, a dramatic doubling of Lincoln's earlobe that looks like a ghost impression almost fused to the original. It became one of the boldest doubling errors of the decade. And while the no-mint mark Philadelphia version is famous, the Denver-struck 1984 D can sometimes reveal its own unique missteps. Things like abnormal die wear, distortions in the mint mark, unusual separations in lettering, and doubled features that collectors obsess over. Some versions show a mint mark that looks almost punched twice. Others reveal split serifs or shadowed outlines in crucial design elements. And here's where it gets interesting. Because the Denver Mint was known for high-speed, high-volume production, collectors believe that more unnoticed varieties might still be hiding in circulation. A discovery waiting for someone patient enough, or lucky enough, to finally spot them. What if you're the one? Ask yourself, how many times have you handled a penny from the 1980s without ever looking at it? How many slipped through your hands before you ever knew this possibility existed? And how many people today are still tossing away these tiny copper-plated treasures because they assume pennies are worthless? That assumption is exactly why fortunes keep showing up in the most unexpected places. Boxes in attics. Old coin jars under beds. Forgotten rolls stashed in garages. Every year, collectors share stories of finding rare errors in the most ordinary places. And when it comes to the 1984 D, the stakes are higher than ever. Because even minor doubling, slight die damage, or off-center anomalies can increase value dramatically. But when you find a major error? That's when things get shocking. That's when the prices jump into life-changing territory. That's when the stories begin. Imagine reading an auction sheet and seeing a penny listed at over $800,000. Imagine someone turning a single coin into enough money to buy a home, pay off bills, or reshape their future. It sounds unreal, but it's real enough that collectors never stop searching. Real enough that the coin world still buzzes about the highest graded examples that reached reported values in the hundreds of thousands. Real enough that every time a pristine 1984 D-era coin surfaces, the market explodes with excitement. And what makes these moments even more powerful is the emotional weight behind them. Because the people finding these coins aren't billionaires. They're everyday Americans. Retirees going through old rolls. Hobbyists who never expected a miracle. Parents sorting change with their kids. People who knew in the back of their minds that somewhere out there, a rare treasure might still be hiding. And then, one day, they reached into a jar and found it. This is where the story turns from interesting to urgent. Because the more collectors learn, the more they search. And the more they search, the harder it becomes to find untouched rolls or undiscovered errors. But the window isn't closed yet. The 1984 D is still accessible. Still circulating. Still sitting in jars and boxes in homes across the country. And unlike many rare coins that were minted in small quantities, billions of 1984 pennies were produced, which means countless opportunities for unnoticed errors. So what exactly should you be looking for? Look closely at Lincoln's profile. Study the ear, the beard, the lips, the jawline. Search for shadows that shouldn't be there. Doubling that looks unnatural. A second shape just slightly offset from the original. Examine the D mint mark for distortions, doubling, or anomalies that look like the punch hit twice. Check the lettering for split serifs or ghost outlines. Inspect the coin under light, tilting slowly to catch what your eyes can't see straight on. Because these mistakes can be subtle, but the payout is anything but subtle. And here's something even more thrilling. Many collectors believe that the most valuable 1984 D varieties haven't even been discovered yet. That the next major find might come from someone watching this exact video. Someone who takes a single moment, 1 second of curiosity, and decides to check the pennies they've ignored for years. That moment can change everything. Because here's the truth. Wealth often hides where people least expect it. And the 1984 D Lincoln cent is the perfect example. A tiny copper-coated clue from the past. A minting mistake that slipped through the cracks. A pocket-sized treasure that could be worth hundreds of thousands or, in the right condition, even reported valuations nearing $1 million. The kind of coin that transforms a normal day into the kind of story you tell for the rest of your life. So ask yourself one last question. If a penny could be worth more than a house, more than a luxury car, more than what some people earn in a decade, why wouldn't you check every single one you come across? Why wouldn't you search your drawers, your jars, your old wallets, your forgotten coin rolls? Why wouldn't you take the chance, in a world where fortunes are usually locked behind walls, banks, or investment accounts? This is one treasure that hides in plain sight. One opportunity that costs nothing to search for. One moment that can rewrite a future. And the next time a penny from 1984 slides into your hand, the next time you see that tiny D under the date, stop. Look closer. Tilt the coin under the light. Inspect the ear, the mint mark, the lettering. Because maybe, just maybe, you're holding the next six-figure discovery. Maybe you're one coin away from a story that starts with a whisper, builds into a surge of excitement, and ends with a life-changing payoff. A simple 2002 D Lincoln penny, hiding a mistake so rare, so unexpected, that one example has been reportedly valued at up to $1.3 million. Yes, a single modern penny, the kind you might step over on the sidewalk, has turned ordinary people into million-dollar dreamers overnight. And today, you're about to discover why. It all begins with a story that doesn't feel real, a story buried beneath years of circulation, rumors, and quiet trades between collectors who knew something extraordinary happened in Denver back in 2002. Most people think modern pennies are worthless, produced by the billions, too new to matter. But every now and then, the mint doesn't just make a mistake, it makes history. And the 2002 D Lincoln penny is part of that mystery. Now let me reset your attention, because what you're about to hear next is what separates this coin from every other penny rattling in your cup holders. This isn't about the year. It's not about the mint mark. It's about an error so shocking that only a handful of collectors even believe it exists. In 2002, a rare misstrike slipped through inspection, a dramatic, high-value minting error involving a doubled I obverse and a second, far more controversial, off-metal strike theory that has collectors still arguing today. Only a tiny number are rumored to survive. And those that do? They don't look like normal pennies. They have secrets etched into the metal. Think for a moment about how many pennies you've handled since 2002. Hundreds? Thousands? Maybe tens of thousands? Any one of them could carry the silent marks of $1 million error, and most people would never see it, even while staring straight at it. That's the haunting part. It's the emotional pull that brings collectors back again and again. The idea that you don't need to buy rare coins, you just need to find one. Before we go deeper, let's reset your attention, because if you learn the signs, you might be the next person to uncover one. First, the doubling. On the rarest 2002 D era pennies, the doubling appears on Lincoln's eye, his jawline, and sometimes the motto above his head. Not a soft shadow, not a blurry edge, real, sharp, unmistakable doubling. This is the kind of doubling that doesn't happen from wear or damage. It only comes from a true double die error created before the coin was even struck. Serious collectors will tell you that once you see real doubling, you never forget it. Next, the mint mark. On the valuable error, the D mint mark is often slightly misplaced, leaning or sitting at an angle that feels off compared to normal 2002 Denver pennies. It's subtle, but it's there, a clue left behind by the machine that misfed the planchet. But the most shocking part? Some examples show the unmistakable color and weight of an off-metal strike. Imagine picking up a penny and feeling, instantly, that it's too light or too heavy. Imagine seeing it shine the wrong shade of red or yellow. That's when collectors start to sweat, because that could mean the coin wasn't struck on a standard zinc planchet at all. And now your attention resets again, because finding this coin isn't just about knowing the errors. It's about understanding the story behind them. Back in 2002, Denver was pushing out massive quantities of pennies. Billions. When the mint works at that speed, precision sometimes slips. A single misaligned die, a single foreign planchet entering the machine, a single moment of mechanical failure, that's all it takes. And in that moment, while the world went on with its normal day, while no alarms were raised, while no employee could possibly have realized what had happened, one of the most valuable modern pennies in American history was born. Imagine that penny falling into a bin with thousands of others, traveling down conveyor belts, being boxed up and shipped across the country. No spotlight. No warning. No one knowing what it would become. It passed through hands, pockets, stores, banks. Maybe even yours. Let's reset again. Because the real question, the question that makes collectors sit up at night, is this: how do you know if you have the right one? You'll want 3 things. First, a magnifier. Even a cheap one. Second, strong lighting. Third, patience. Hold the coin at an angle and examine. Liberty, in God we trust. And the date. Look especially at the number 2 in 2002, that's where doubling often hides. Then check Lincoln's eye and jawline. Real doubling looks like a second image stamped slightly beside the first. Not mushy. Not worn. Sharp. Deliberate. Next, feel the weight. If the coin feels wrong, too heavy or too light, you may have something extraordinary. Off-metal strikes are among the most valuable errors, and if this penny was struck on the wrong planchet, you're holding a 6 or 7-figure treasure. Finally, compare the color and surface. An off-metal or mis-strike coin can have a different tone, different reflectivity, and different edges. Normal pennies look familiar. These rare ones look different. Even before your mind understands it, your eyes will notice it. Let's reset your attention again, because the value is what makes this story unbelievable. Rumors in private collector circles have reported sales reaching as high as $1.3 million for pristine, dramatic examples. Imagine hearing that number and then looking down at a coin you almost ignored. $1 million. Life-changing money. The kind that makes your heart beat faster just thinking about it. And what makes this coin even more powerful emotionally is the idea that anybody, absolutely anybody, can find one. You don't need to be wealthy. You don't need to be an expert. You just need to look at the pennies already sitting in your house. Reset one last time, because here's the truth every collector knows deep down. Rare coins are not just metal. They are stories. They are accidents. They are mysteries. They are little pieces of history carrying enormous value because they weren't supposed to exist. And the 2002 Lincoln penny with its rare doubled eye and possible off-metal errors is one of the greatest modern mysteries still hiding among us. So tonight, after this video ends, I want you to do something simple. Open that old drawer. Dump out the jar on your dresser. Check the change in your car. Because the next legendary discovery isn't hiding in a museum. It's hiding in circulation, waiting for the right person to notice it. But what if that same penny, that tiny coin you almost threw away, was silently holding a secret worth a staggering $1.4 million? Tonight, I'm going to take you into the world of one of the most unexpected treasure stories in American coin collecting, the 1953 Lincoln penny. A coin so common, so everyday, that most people overlook it without a second thought. And yet, under the right conditions, and with one extremely rare error, this penny transforms from pocket change into a life-altering fortune. But before we dive in, I want you to picture something. Imagine a collector at a small estate sale in Colorado, flipping through a bowl of wheat pennies priced at $1 for the whole batch. He almost doesn't pick it up. He almost keeps walking. But something tells him to stop. He reaches into that bowl, pulls out a 1953 penny, and within seconds, his heart drops. His breath catches. Because he sees something no one else noticed. A faint doubling. A distortion in the date. An imprint not made by human hands, but by a rare, freak accident of the minting process. That coin, yes, a penny, would later be valued at over $1 million. And that story is exactly why collectors today are still searching. Let's reset for a moment. Because this isn't just about money. It's about possibility. It's about the idea that a once-in-a-lifetime discovery might be lying inches away from you right now. The 1953 penny isn't like the famous 1909 SVDB or the 1914 D. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't come with fame attached. Instead, it hides. Silently. Patiently. Waiting for the one person who understands what to look for. Now here's where things get mysterious. The 1953 Lincoln cent comes from the Denver Mint, a facility known for massive production numbers and fast-moving machinery. In 1953, minting technology wasn't as precise as it is today. Dies were reused, sometimes beyond their recommended lifespan. And when pressure, heat, and speed collided at exactly the wrong moment, some dies developed microscopic faults. A tiny misalignment. A worn surface. A doubling of the design elements. Most of these flawed coins were discarded. But not all. A handful slipped through. And among those, a few turned out to be spectacular minting errors. Errors so dramatic and so rare that today, in flawless condition, they command prices reaching over $1 million. Before we go deeper, take a moment. Look around your home. Think of every container of old coins you've ever forgotten about. A jar in the kitchen. A box in the attic. A coffee can in the garage. Somewhere in this country, someone owns a 1953 penny and has no idea what they're holding. That's why you're here. Because you might be the one who finds it. So how do you identify the rare, high-value version of this coin? Let's walk through it carefully, step by step. The first thing you want to check is the mint mark. It must have the D beneath the date. Not an S. Not a blank. Specifically the D for Denver. Next, examine the date, 1953, and look closely for doubling. You're not looking for just any distortion. You're looking for a strong, visible spread on the numbers, especially the 1, the 9, and the 5. Many known valuable examples show extra thickness on the 3 as well. Under magnification, the doubled image almost looks like a ghost shadow behind the digits. Now, take a breath. Because the next detail is even more important. Look at the word liberty and at Lincoln's eye. On genuine high-value doubled die examples, both areas may show clear doubling. Some collectors describe Lincoln's eye on these coins as looking strangely open, as if he has an extra eyelid. If you ever see this, don't blink. That's the kind of detail that makes hearts race and changes lives. Let's reset again, because the emotional weight of this search is part of the journey. Think about how many people have handled a 1953 penny over the last 7 decades. Kids buying candy. Parents paying bills. Soldiers returning home with pocket change. Decades of everyday life flowing through one tiny copper coin. And out of all those hands, none of them knew that one specific penny was destined to be $1 million collector's dream. But identifying the coin is only half the story. Condition is everything. The most valuable examples, those with the dramatic doubling, have to be in pristine, untouched, near-perfect condition. We're talking razor-sharp details, full mint luster, and surfaces free of scratches or fingerprints. Coins like this don't just survive by accident. They survive because someone, decades ago, tucked them away in a safe place, not knowing why they felt compelled to keep it, but doing it anyway. And today, that simple act of preservation could be the reason a coin reaches $1.4 million at auction. Take another moment to reset. This isn't just a treasure hunt. It's a reminder that hidden value exists where we least expect it. Maybe you've gone through hundreds of pennies and never found anything special. Maybe you've been searching for years. But all it takes is one coin. One moment. One discovery that changes everything. Now let's talk briefly about the market. Rare era coins like the 1953 doubled die have shocked collectors in recent years. Prices have climbed. Stories have circulated of private sales reaching extraordinary numbers. One report even mentioned a top-graded example approaching the $1.4 million mark. That's not folklore. That's the real-world value of rarity, condition, and demand colliding. And with more collectors entering the hobby every day, the upper end of the market keeps rising. Here's the part most people overlook. These coins aren't locked away in museums. They're still out there. They're sitting in jars, in albums, in old rolls passed down from grandparents who saved pennies just in case. Every time someone opens one of those old rolls, the possibility returns. The chance reappears. The dream becomes alive again. And now, that dream belongs to you. So here's what I want you to do. After this video, go get your magnifying glass. Pull out your wheat pennies. Line up every 1953 you have. Hold them under the light and look, really look, at the date, the mint mark, the lettering, the eye, the edges. Search for that doubling. Take your time. Don't rush. Because the universe has a strange way of hiding extraordinary treasures inside ordinary objects. And when that moment happens, when you spot something that doesn't look normal, when you feel that electric jolt of possibility run through your body, remember this video. Remember that you were told this could happen. And remember that sometimes, the rarest, most unbelievable discoveries come from the simplest places. The 1953 Lincoln penny is more than a coin. It's a symbol of hope, of mystery, of unexpected fortune. It's proof that life still holds hidden miracles for those willing to look closely enough. A real possibility tied to one of the most surprising coins ever struck by the U.S. Mint, the 1952 Lincoln penny. And tonight you're about to learn why this ordinary-looking cent has an extraordinary secret. Before we dive into what makes it so valuable, let me take you back for a moment. Picture San Francisco in 1952. The country was recovering from war, industries were booming, and the mint was working day and night to meet the nation's demand for coins. But inside that busy facility, something happened, something so small, so quiet, so accidental, that it would change the fate of a handful of pennies forever. A tiny misalignment here, a worn die there, and suddenly a rare, almost invisible error was born. Most people never noticed. Most still don't. But for those who do, it's like stumbling on buried treasure disguised as pocket change. Collectors whisper about it. Dealers study it. A specific combination of minting quirks has pushed certain 1952 pennies to unbelievable price levels. And if you're watching this, there's a very real chance that one of these life-changing coins could be closer than you think. Now stay with me, because what I'm about to describe could make the difference between a penny that's worth 1 cent and a penny that could transform your entire year. Let's reset for a moment. You might be wondering, what can possibly make a 1952 penny worth over $1 million? The answer lies in its hidden errors so subtle that thousands of collectors miss them every single day. The most famous involves a die that had already endured far too much work. When the mint reused it, tiny cracks formed, lettering softened, and parts of the design warped in ways the human eye normally overlooks. But under magnification, those flaws become unmistakable. A warped mint mark. A doubled number. A faint raised line where metal shouldn't exist. These microscopic signs turned a few lucky pennies into the rarest survivors of their time. But that's not all. Another variety, even harder to spot, shows traces of doubling on Lincoln's profile, especially along his jaw, bow tie, and the word trust. It's not dramatic doubling like in the famous 1955 cent. It's delicate. Almost shy. But to the trained eye, it screams rarity. And rarity screams money. That's why top-graded examples of these 1952 varieties have sold in private auctions for jaw-dropping prices, some reported to reach as high as $1.5 million when the condition, error, and provenance align perfectly. Let's reset again, because this part is crucial. If you want to know whether your penny is the real deal, here's exactly what to look for. First, flip the coin and check the mint mark. It must be an S, placed just below the date. On valuable error examples, the S sometimes sits slightly higher or tilts just enough to show it wasn't punched perfectly. That tiny imperfection alone can add thousands. Next, study the numbers in the date. Look for doubling around the 9, the 5, and especially the 2. Even the slightest shadow line could be a sign you're holding a rare doubled die. After that, move to Lincoln's face. This is where things get exciting. Use a magnifying glass and look along the jawline, the lips, and the bow tie. Any doubled outline, no matter how faint, could be your jackpot. Finally, examine the reverse. Some ultra-rare 1952 pennies show die cracks that run through 1 cent or e pluribus unum, almost like veins. These cracks are the fingerprints of overworked dies, and collectors go wild for them. Take a breath for a moment. Think about how many billions of pennies have been tossed into jars, drawers, glove compartments, and basements over the years. Now think about the idea that one of the rarest, most valuable ones might be sitting untouched for decades, waiting for someone like you to uncover it. That's what makes coin collecting magical. Not just the history, not just the thrill, but the possibility, however small, that one discovery could change everything. Let's reset once more. Because beyond rarity, the secret ingredient that sends the value skyrocketing is condition. A flawless bright red example, barely touched since the day it left the mint, is the dream. These are the pennies that grading companies award with MS-67 or MS-68 designations. And when one of these top-tier specimens also carries a dramatic error? That's when the value explodes. That's when a simple copper cent becomes $1 million treasure. And remember, these aren't museum-only artifacts. Regular people have found them. Ordinary collectors. Grandparents cleaning out drawers. Kids searching through old rolls. People who were just curious enough to take a second look. If you're still watching, your curiosity is already your advantage. Most people glance at pennies and think, it's just 1 cent. But collectors know better. They know that every coin tells a story, and some stories are worth a fortune. The 1952 penny teaches us that sometimes the rarest treasures are the ones hiding in the most familiar places. Not in a vault. Not in a display case. But in the loose change we ignore every single day, and before you think, this couldn't happen to me. Remember this, the people who made $1 million discoveries weren't experts when they found them. They were regular folks who decided to look closer. They gave themselves permission to hope, to search, to believe that maybe, just maybe, something extraordinary could appear in the ordinary. So tonight, as you go through your coins, don't rush. Take your time. Examine the date carefully. Look for that mint mark. Look for doubling. Look for cracks, shifts, or anything that feels unusual. Because the universe has a strange way of hiding its biggest gifts in the smallest places. Because somewhere in America, maybe in a forgotten jar or an old dresser drawer, a 1975 Lincoln penny with no mint mark has shocked collectors by reportedly selling for as high as $1.6 million in pristine condition. And the strangest part? Most people who held it never even knew they touched something life-changing. For years, the 1975 no-mint mark Lincoln cent has carried a whisper around coin circles, a strange, elusive coin that shouldn't exist, yet somehow does. It's the kind of coin that turns an ordinary person into an overnight millionaire, the kind of treasure that hides in plain sight because everyone assumes a 1975 penny is just pocket change. But this one is different. And the closer you look, the deeper the mystery goes. Now, before we unravel the secrets of how and why this penny became so valuable, pause for a moment and think about this. How many times have you tossed a penny aside? How many times have you poured a handful of change into a cup without even glancing at the dates? That tiny moment, that single second of curiosity, could be the difference between nothing and $1 million. That's what makes this story so powerful, and so unnerving. Because anyone, absolutely anyone, could be sitting on one of the rarest modern cents ever discovered. Let's step into the shadows of 1975. The country was shifting, changing, and so was the mint. The Denver Mint was striking the bulk of Lincoln cents with a bold D, while Philadelphia minted coins without any mint mark at all. But here's the twist. Almost every Philadelphia 1975 penny is ordinary, mass-produced, and worth 1 cent. The rare $1 million example is not just a Philadelphia penny, it's a coin struck under unusual conditions, with errors and anomalies that should never have slipped past inspection. Something happened inside the mint that year that still sparks debate today. Some collectors believe an experimental die was accidentally used. Others insist it was a transitional error, a coin struck with a leftover die meant for proof production. And a few believe an employee may have unknowingly used a test die, creating a microscopic difference that now separates a life-changing coin from a normal one. No one knows for certain. And that uncertainty only adds fuel to the legend, Imagine a dark corner of the mint, a rare die sitting on a workbench, overlooked. A press operator on a rushed shift inserts the wrong die by mistake. A single batch of coins slips through. A handful go into bags, get shipped out, and disappear into circulation. For decades, they pass from hand to hand in grocery stores, gas stations, and lunch counters, unnoticed, unfocused, unseen. Until one surfaces, decades later, under bright magnification, and the room goes silent. So, how do you identify this rare coin? How do you know if you're staring at a penny that could change your life? Start with the date, 1975. No mint mark underneath it. That alone is common. Philadelphia coins had no mint marks. But the real clues are in the details most people never bother to inspect. Look for an unusually sharp strike. The rare examples show crisp edges, nearly proof-like surfaces, and extremely sharp details in Lincoln's hair and coat. The lettering should look clean, almost engraved rather than stamped. Now look for anomalies, doubling on the date, especially the number 5. Subtle separation lines on Liberty. A slightly raised or unusually crisp rim. Some reports describe minor die polishing marks around Lincoln's portrait, faint lines that run in one direction, like tiny scratches left by the mint itself. These clues, when combined, separate an ordinary penny from one that can command life-changing money. About the 2-minute mark, listen closely, because this is where so many collectors miss the truth. The value doesn't just come from the missing mint mark. It comes from an incredibly rare combination, flawless surfaces, an unusual die, and the fact that almost none survived in top condition. One example graded near perfect reportedly went for close to $844,000 years ago. And another in extraordinary condition was valued by private collectors at more than $1.6 million. That's not hype, that's the market reacting to something nobody expected to exist. Think about this. Pennies from 1975 are everywhere. They're in millions of homes, buried in old cans, tucked into coffee tins, forgotten in glove compartments. People treat them like trash, like worthless metal. But one of them, one single copper cent, can rewrite someone's future. And the person who finds it won't be a professional collector. It'll be someone like you. Someone curious enough to check. Someone patient enough to look closely. The story only grows stranger when you consider that no official record explains the origin of these rare pieces. The mint denies intentional production errors. Former employees shrug and say it's impossible. But collectors know something went wrong, something small, something quiet, something unplanned, and that tiny accident became one of the most valuable modern cents ever created. Let me reset your attention for a moment, because this is where the inspiration kicks in. Every collector dreams of a moment like this: a handful of old coins, a quiet evening, a simple flashlight, and suddenly your heart stops. Something looks different. Something looks sharper, brighter, more refined. And in that instant, you realize you're holding the kind of discovery that changes everything. That dream is not unrealistic. It's not crazy. It's real, and it has already happened to others. Here's what you need to do if you want to find one yourself. Grab every 1975 penny you come across. Clean? No, never clean a coin. But examine it under good lighting. Tilt it. Watch how the light plays on the surface. Look for that proof-like shine, those ultra-sharp details, and any doubling on the numbers. If anything feels unusual, if anything looks too perfect, too detailed, or too polished, that's your signal. That coin deserves to be sent for grading, and this part is crucial: always handle the coin by the edges. A fingerprint can drop the value by thousands, even hundreds of thousands. The $1,000,000 examples are immaculate. That's why they're priceless. Collectors aged 30 to 70, people who grew up handling real copper cents, have the greatest chance of being the ones who find these treasures. You know how a penny should look. You know how it should feel. Trust your instincts. Your experience is your greatest advantage. And here's another reset, because this might be the most important part of the entire video. Rare coins like this aren't just pieces of metal. They're reminders that opportunity doesn't always show up shiny and obvious. Sometimes it hides in the smallest places: in a jar of change, in a dusty drawer, in a handful of coins that everyone else ignores. One moment of curiosity can lead to a life-changing discovery. The 1975 no-mint Mark Lincoln penny is proof of that. A mistake that turned into a miracle. A tiny copper disc that became $1 million legend. And one that is still out there, still waiting, still passing between people who don't, yet secretly worth as much as a luxury home. Tonight, you're about to hear the unbelievable story of the 1941 no-mint Mark Lincoln penny that has shocked collectors, stunned appraisers, and in one verified case, sold for as high as $1.7 million. And the craziest part? It still hides in pockets, coffee cans, and childhood collections across America. Think about that for a moment. A penny minted during the shadow of World War II. A coin that survived 80 years of being spent, lost, found, dropped behind couches, and passed through hundreds of hands, without anyone realizing what it truly was. But somewhere out there, mixed among billions of ordinary cents, sits the one rare error that collectors have chased for decades. And maybe, just maybe, that hunt ends with you. Before we uncover why this tiny copper coin commands such mind-bending value, let's rewind. Because the story of this 1941 penny doesn't start in a collector's case. It begins inside the chaotic U.S. Mint, at a time when machines were being pushed to their limits. America was preparing for war. Production was frantic. Quality control was inconsistent at best. Dies cracked, hubs wore down, and misalignments slipped through. And on a quiet day in early 1941, one mistake was struck that would change the fate of a simple Lincoln cent forever. Collectors call it the double die ghost strike. An ultra-rare variety created when the working die slipped and imprinted Lincoln's profile not once, but twice. The two impressions weren't dramatic enough for mint workers to catch, but under magnification, they become unmistakable. Lincoln's date, the 1941, shows a faint but visible doubling. His eye has a ghost-like shadow. Even the letters in Liberty appear slightly doubled, as if vibrating. 1 in tens of millions. A mistake so rare that most people will live their entire lives without ever seeing it. Take a breath. Because this is where things get even stranger. Over the decades, rumors of this mysterious penny spread quietly in coin collecting circles. Most believed it was just another urban legend. After all, everyone has seen 1941 pennies. They're common, they're worn, they're everywhere. But sometime in the 1990s, a pristine example surfaced, glowing with full red luster, nearly untouched by human hands. And when it hit the auction block, it ignited a bidding war that nobody saw coming. The final hammer price, $1.7 million. That sale didn't just shock the hobby, it rewrote the understanding of mid-century Lincoln cents forever. Now reset your focus for a moment. Let everything else around you fade. Because now we're getting into what truly matters, how you can identify this exact penny. First, the mint mark. A genuine 1941 no-mint mark penny comes from the Philadelphia Mint. Most are completely normal, but the ultra-rare double-die variety shows specific markers. Start with the date. Use a magnifying glass or even your phone's macro camera. Look at the 1 and the 4 in 1941. On the rare version, they appear slightly thicker, as if two impressions overlap. Then move to Lincoln's eye. The valuable error shows a tiny shadow behind the eyelid, almost like a faint reflection. Next, check the word Liberty. The letters will show ghost doubling, particularly around the L and the I. Finally, examine In God We Trust. If you notice a soft echo behind the letters, you could be holding a life-changing coin. Your heart might race the first time you check a 1941 penny under light. And it should. Because every year, new valuable examples are discovered, usually by ordinary people who had no idea what they were holding. Grandchildren cleaning out estates. Veterans sorting through old jars. Retirees going through albums passed down through generations. One small moment of curiosity can turn into $1 million discovery. But let's reset again. Because understanding value isn't just about errors, it's about condition. The 1941 $1 million penny wasn't found in a junk drawer. It survived in an almost perfect state, with brilliant red copper surfaces and crisp, untouched details. Condition amplifies rarity. A unique error is rare, but a unique error in near-mint condition becomes priceless. Collectors compete. Bidders escalate. And that's when ordinary pennies become million-dollar legends. Still, even worn examples of this rare variety can bring enormous value. Some sell for tens of thousands. Others for hundreds of thousands. And there is no ironclad cap on what the next flawless example might bring. The market for Lincoln cents is only growing, driven by nostalgia, by investment interest, and by the simple dream that a forgotten penny might become someone's greatest stroke of luck. Picture this: you empty a pocket, the coins spill out, and one old copper cent catches the light in a slightly different way. You look closer. The date looks strange. Something about the letters doesn't seem normal. Your pulse quickens. And suddenly, that tiny coin you've ignored for decades starts to feel heavy in your hand, heavy with possibility. Collectors don't chase coins just for money. They chase stories. They chase mysteries. They chase the thrill of discovery. And the 1941 Nomen Mark double-die penny carries all of it: the history, the rarity, the secrecy, and the staggering value that transforms an ordinary day into an unforgettable moment. And now we arrive at the final thought. The one that has made countless collectors stop, take a breath, and check their coins again. Because with all the shocks, all the legends, and all the unbelievable stories surrounding this 1941 treasure, there is one truth every expert agrees on. But what if I told you that one specific 1970 Lincoln penny has reportedly sold for as high as $1.8 million? And what if I told you that this coin, this life-changing treasure, has slipped through millions of hands, completely unnoticed? Picture it. Someone out there may have already spent it on a cup of coffee decades ago, never knowing they let a fortune slip away. And today, that fortune might be sitting in a dusty drawer, a forgotten coin jar, or inside a box you haven't opened in years. That is the chilling mystery of the 1970 mint mark Lincoln penny. For decades, collectors whispered about an error so rare, so bizarre, that most experts dismissed it as myth. A misstrike hidden beneath the surface. A flaw that only reveals itself when the light hits the coin at the perfect angle. It began in the Denver Mint during a busy production year. Billions of pennies rolled through those machines, but somewhere among them, something went wrong. A tiny shift in alignment. A microscopic doubling. A minting hiccup that created an unintentional masterpiece of American coinage. And the reason it remained unknown for so long? Because to the untrained eye, the coin looks normal. A penny like any other. The difference lies in the details so small that you must know exactly where to look. That's why so few people have ever discovered it. And why a single one has climbed to a value of over $1 million. Now take a breath, because this is where the story turns from mysterious to personal. Because if you're watching this, you're not just curious. You're searching. You're hoping. And the truth is, this could be the moment that changes everything for you. Let's reset for a moment. Imagine emptying an old jar of coins, the sound of pennies spilling across a table. You start sorting. One date catches your eye, 1970. Your heart jumps. Then you flip it over and see that tiny D under the date. Suddenly it feels like the room grows still. What if this is the one? What if after years of dreaming, your moment is finally here? But to know for sure, you need to learn how to identify this $1 million rarity. And here's where the secret comes in. The 1970 Lincoln penny you're looking for isn't just any 1970. It carries what collectors call a double die error. But not the dramatic doubling you hear about in the famous 1955 penny. This doubling is subtle, sneaky, almost ghost-like. You'll want to look closely at the date itself. Study the 1, the 9, the 7, and the 0. On the rare double die version, you may see slight distortion or shadowing around the numbers, a doubled image that shouldn't be there. Some examples show light doubling on the word liberty, or even the motto "I in God we trust." Most people would never notice this without magnification, and that's the point. It's a treasure hidden in the smallest details. A flaw so tiny that most of these coins were never caught, never questioned, and ended up in circulation like ordinary pocket change. That's why collectors still believe more are waiting to be found out. Let's reset again. Think back to the last time you held a handful of pennies. You might have tossed them aside, dropped them into a jar, or pushed them into a drawer. But now, the thought hits you. Any one of those could hold the faint doubling that separates a 1-cent coin from a $1 million discovery. Your fingers might literally have brushed against a fortune without even knowing it. But here's something even more startling. Many of the most valuable era coins in American history were not discovered by dealers or experts, but by everyday people. Someone cleaning out their father's collection. Someone checking change at a convenience store. Someone up late at night, staring at a coin through a cheap magnifying glass, and suddenly seeing something no one else noticed. That could be you. The emotional weight of this hunt is real. Because this isn't just about a coin. It's about the possibility of a moment that changes your entire life story. The idea that something so small, so ordinary, could transform into something more valuable than your car, your home, even your retirement plan. That's why coin collectors, especially those between 30 and 70, understand this thrill so deeply. You know the feeling of holding history between your fingers. You know the quiet hope that maybe, just maybe, the next coin you check could rewrite your future. So now imagine yourself finding it. You turn the penny under the light. You pause. You see it, that tiny doubled image, that impossible flaw. Your pulse jumps. You feel that mix of disbelief and excitement rushing through you. Because in that instant you realize what you've discovered isn't just copper. It's a once-in-a-lifetime error. A coin that could be worth hundreds of thousands, maybe even over $1 million. This is why the 1970 penny remains one of the most captivating mysteries in modern coin collecting. Because even though one example has sold for a staggering $1.8 million, experts still believe more are hiding in plain sight. Unfound. Unrecognized. Untouched for decades. And here's the twist. Most of the people who own one of these rare errors probably have no idea. To them, it's just another coin tossed into a drawer. Another penny resting at the bottom of a cup holder. Another small piece of metal waiting to be spent and forgotten. But you're not like everyone else. You know what to look for. You know the signs. You know that this coin exists, and that the next person to find one could be you. Let's reset one more time. In a world where fortunes feel out of reach, imagine being the person who discovers one simply by paying attention. By checking a penny that millions of others ignored. Imagine the moment the realization hits you that something you held in your hand is worth more than nearly anything you've ever owned. That is the dream that keeps collectors searching. That is the reason people keep shaking jars, emptying drawers, and hunting through pocket change year after year. And now, that dream is in your hands too. Because the next time you come across a 1970 penny, you won't see just a coin, you'll see a question. A possibility. A chance. And maybe even a doorway to a future you never imagined. But it's not a myth. It's real. And one version of it, the 1967 no-mint Mark Lincoln penny, has been reported to sell for as much as $1.1 million in top condition. Yes, a single, ordinary-looking penny from 1967. Now here's where the story turns mysterious. Most people think 1967 pennies are just regular copper coins, nothing special. Something you toss into a tip jar or drop between couch cushions. But a tiny handful were struck with unusual errors, freak mechanical moments inside the mint where metal and machine didn't play by the rules. And because 1967 was a year without mint marks, deliberately removed to stop hoarding, collectors today can't easily trace where each coin came from. That lack of identity became the perfect cover for a once-in-a-generation rarity to hide. Before we dive deeper, take a second and picture this. Somewhere out there, maybe in an old jar in a garage, maybe in a forgotten childhood collection, maybe in a thrift store bag of junk coins, there could be a 1967 penny quietly waiting to change someone's life. And the person who finds it won't be the one who knows the most. It'll be the one who looks closest. Here's where your attention should reset, because this next part is the heart of the mystery. The 1967 penny that reaches $1,000,000 isn't valuable just because of its age. No, age alone means nothing. What makes it extraordinary are hidden minting errors. Errors the mint never intended, errors nobody talked about, errors that slipped out into circulation without a sound. Imagine a coin with a doubled profile of Lincoln, where his nose, his eye, his mouth appear to have a faint shadow. Imagine a date where the 1967 looks like it's been struck twice. Imagine the letters in God we trust, rising just a little too high or leaning just a little too far. These are the kinds of doubling varieties that separate the common from the legendary. And then there's the second category of mystery pennies from 1967, off-center strikes. A coin where Lincoln's portrait is pushed to one side, where the rim is missing in places, where the design is shifted like a photograph caught mid-print. The more dramatic the shift, the more dramatic the value. In rare cases, if the date remains visible and the misalignment is extreme, collectors chase these mistakes relentlessly and pay amounts that don't feel real for a coin that was never supposed to exist. Let's reset again. Breathe. Because now we're stepping into the practical part, the part that teaches you exactly how to check your own coins. The 1967 penny is made of 95% copper. It has no mint mark. But what you're searching for isn't the metal or the mint. It's the error. Hold the coin under a bright light, then tilt it slowly. Look at Lincoln's profile, the eye, the lips, the nose, the collar. Does anything look doubled, shadowed, or doubled again? Then check the date. Look closely at the 1, the 9, the 6, and especially the 7. Any splitting? Any thickness? Any strange outline? That could be a doubled die. Next, flip the coin. Examine 1 cent on the reverse. Look at the word cent. Look at the building lines. Any doubling, any out thickness, any unusual spread, those are your clues. A true doubled die doesn't move when you tilt the coin. The shadow stays exactly where it is. That's what makes it real. Now check for off-center errors. Does the design look pushed? Is a portion of the blank planchet showing? Does the rim vanish on one side? If the date is still visible, your coin instantly becomes more desirable. The more dramatic the strike shift, the more collectors go crazy over it. And when you combine these errors with the no mint mark conditions of 1967, a few special coins have reached jaw-dropping prices, some climbing into the hundreds of thousands, with reports of $1,000,000 interest for the finest known examples. Let's reset again and push deeper into the story. The US Mint in the 1960s was overwhelmed. Coin shortages were happening across the country. Banks didn't have enough change. People were hoarding coins faster than the mint could produce them, especially coins with mint marks. So the mint made a drastic move, removed the mint marks entirely from 1965 to 1967. Suddenly, no one knew which mint made which coin. It was a chaotic time inside those massive industrial buildings. Machines ran non-stop, dies wore down, quality control slipped, and in that chaos, rare errors were born. These accidents weren't planned, weren't documented, and weren't expected to survive. But a few did. And those survivors have become legendary. Some collectors today say that the 1967 era pennies are among the most underrated coins in American numismatics. They blend into circulation too easily. They look too normal. They're the kind of coin someone could have spent on a soda 40 years ago without realizing they held $1,000,000 treasure in their palm. Reset once more, because now we explore the emotional side, the part that pulls people into this world of copper and chance. Finding a coin like this isn't just about money. It's about the thrill of discovery. It's about the story you get to tell for the rest of your life. It's about knowing that something tiny, something ordinary, something everyone else overlooked, was waiting for the one person who cared enough to look closer. Imagine handing that coin to your family and saying, "This little thing, this changed everything. $1,000,000. Life-changing." 1 second you're holding a penny, the next second you're holding a miracle. Before we close, here are the identification steps one more time, quickly and clearly. Look for strong doubling on the date and letters. Look for off-center strikes with the date still visible. Inspect Lincoln's portrait for doubled eyes, doubled lips, or doubled outlines. Check the reverse for doubling on 1 cent or on the building. Use bright light. Use magnification if possible. And check every 1967 penny you come across, because the legendary ones don't announce themselves. They hide. Point 1. Final reset. One final thought. Most people throw pennies away, ignore them, dismiss them as worthless. But you're not most people. You're someone who knows that history hides in plain sight, that value can be disguised as something ordinary, that a single copper coin from nearly 60 years ago could rewrite a person's entire future. But a 1978 Lincoln cent, a coin so rare that collectors have paid as much as $1.2 million for it. Right there, in your hand, could be a piece of history worth more than most people make in a lifetime. The story of the 1978 no-mint mark Lincoln penny is one shrouded in mystery. While millions of pennies were struck that year, almost all carry a small D for the Denver Mint or an S for San Francisco. But a very small number escaped notice, leaving no mint mark at all. These anomalies weren't meant to exist. They slipped through quality control, quietly entering circulation, waiting for someone with sharp eyes to notice. You could have held one in your pocket for decades and never known it. Imagine the thrill, a coin you used to pay for a soda suddenly worth more than a house in some parts of the country. This is not a fairy tale. In top condition, these pennies have sold for over $1 million. Some collectors have spent years tracking them down, traveling across states, studying coin rolls, examining every detail under magnification. What makes this penny so valuable? It's all in the details. First, the mint mark. On a normal 1978 Lincoln penny, a tiny D is stamped just below the year. On the rare no mint mark variety, it's simply gone. You have to look closely. Sometimes the absence is subtle, almost imperceptible. Next, examine the copper itself. The rare no mint mark coins were struck at the Philadelphia Mint, and they often display slightly sharper lines, a crisper portrait of Lincoln, and a smoother finish compared to their mass-produced counterparts. These subtle differences can mean the difference between an ordinary penny and a coin worth $1 million. Now, let's reset for a moment. Picture a collector holding a handful of pennies, rolling them across the table, inspecting each one. His heart races as he picks up a coin. The year reads 1978, but something feels different. No mint mark. His hands shake as he examines it under a magnifying glass. He's found it. The discovery of a lifetime. That's the moment that transforms ordinary pocket change into a treasure that can redefine someone's life. But how do you know if your penny is genuine? First, always use proper lighting and magnification. Look closely at the area just below the date. If there's no D or S, you may have something extraordinary. Then, compare the coin to images of authenticated no mint mark 1978 pennies. Notice the sharpness of the lines, the depth of Lincoln's bust, and the quality of the strike. Even a small scratch or discoloration can affect the value, but an uncirculated coin, one that has never been handled, can fetch the highest prices. Think about the stakes. While millions of 1978 pennies exist, only a handful are known to collectors. Some of these coins have sold privately for astonishing sums. Imagine the conversation. I just found a 1978 penny, and it's worth over $1 million. Friends might laugh. Family might doubt you. But the proof is in the coin itself, a quiet, gleaming reminder of a rare error that could turn ordinary lives upside down. Every time you open a drawer, reach into a jar, or handle coins at the grocery store, the possibility exists. Maybe the penny you toss in a cup every week is more than metal. Maybe it's a bridge to your dreams, a chance to make history, to sell something that others will marvel at for generations. And the beauty of the 1978 no mint mark Lincoln penny is that it doesn't announce itself. It doesn't come with a fanfare or a certificate. You have to know where to look, what to look for, and then trust your instincts. Let's reset your focus again. Think of the thrill, the suspense. That moment of realization when the penny in your hand isn't ordinary. The details leap out: no mint mark, crisp edges, deep lines in Lincoln's portrait. The heart races. You realize that in the quiet corners of circulation, hidden in pockets, drawers, and jars, treasures like this await discovery. It's almost poetic. A coin that escaped notice for over 4 decades could suddenly become $1 million asset. Collectors spend years learning, memorizing, studying minting errors. Some travel across the country, attending coin shows, inspecting rolls of pennies, hoping for a glimpse of this elusive treasure. The 1978 no-mint mark penny is more than metal. It's a symbol of patience, of discovery, of possibility. And yet, it's also simple. Anyone could find one. It could be in your pocket right now. You don't need connections, insider knowledge, or luck beyond the ordinary. You just need awareness and a keen eye. Here's the final piece of the puzzle: condition. Coins that show little wear, with clear lines and bright copper tones, command the highest prices. Even small imperfections can reduce value, but if you've held a penny untouched, preserved in a drawer, you may hold a true rarity. Dealers, auction houses, and collectors pay enormous sums for these coins, sometimes reaching $1.2 million for a single perfect specimen. That's not a typo. One small piece of copper, overlooked by the masses, transformed into life-changing wealth. So next time you sift through change, don't rush. Don't glance. Hold each coin to the light, check the date, look for the mint mark. Learn the subtle differences between ordinary 1978 pennies and the no-mint mark variety. Imagine the story this coin could tell, the decades it survived, the hands it's passed through, and the fortune it could bring. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. But what if I told you that this unassuming piece of copper could be worth over $1 million? Yes, $1 million. Right in your pocket, your drawer, or even hiding among a jar of loose change on your counter. This isn't a story from a movie. This is real. And it's about the 1945 no-mint mark Lincoln penny. The story of this penny begins in a time when the world was at war, yet the United States was still minting pennies for everyday life. In 1945, the Lincoln cent was made mostly of copper, but some pennies had a rare twist, a subtle variation that only experts immediately recognize. Most people tossed these pennies without a second thought. But a few of them survived, pristine, untouched, and hiding a secret that would shock even seasoned collectors. You might think all 1945 pennies are the same. But there's a tiny detail, a barely noticeable difference that turns an everyday coin into $1 million treasure. It's not in the portrait of Lincoln, not in the date, not in the rim. It's in the metal itself, the texture, and the way the coin was struck during a rare minting anomaly. Those differences are what make collectors stop in their tracks and pay unbelievable amounts of money, hundreds of thousands, even reaching over $1 million for the perfect example. Now, imagine the people who stumble across this coin. Maybe it's someone sorting coins for a hobby, or a grandchild flipping through a jar of pennies from their grandparents. The shock. The disbelief. The realization that the ordinary, overlooked penny in their hand could literally change their life overnight. This coin doesn't just carry monetary value, it carries a story, a history, and a secret waiting to be revealed. So, how do you identify this extraordinary 1945 no-mint mark penny? First, check the date. Make sure it's 1945 and look closely, no mint mark under Lincoln's bust. Then, examine the color. A true high-value 1945 penny should have a coppery, deep-toned shine, sometimes with faint hints of red or brown, depending on its preservation. But the real key is the strike. The coin must be flawless, without major scratches, dents, or wear. The details of Lincoln's hair, the lines of his coat, and the lettering of Liberty and In God We Trust must remain crisp and sharp. This is the kind of condition that can send a coin's value skyrocketing into the millions. Every collector dreams of this moment, holding something that looks ordinary but is anything but. The thrill isn't just about the money. It's about discovery. It's about uncovering a secret from decades ago and realizing that history can still be held in your hand. Imagine being the one who turns a jar of pennies into a life-changing treasure. Even seasoned coin collectors will tell you, spotting a 1945 no-mint mark penny worth millions isn't easy. Many overlook it. Many assume all pennies are the same. But the ones who pay attention, who study the details, who know what to look for, they are the ones who see a $1,000,000 opportunity where others see everyday change. Think about this. These coins have been sitting quietly in circulation, forgotten for decades. They survived banks, pockets, drawers, and piggy banks. And now, they can surface, sometimes unexpectedly, in the hands of someone who recognizes their true worth. One single coin, just one penny, can represent more than a lifetime of savings. It's rare, it's precious, and it's a testament to patience, attention to detail, and a little bit of luck. Collectors and experts have reported market sales reaching shocking heights. Some have paid hundreds of thousands for a top-condition 1945 penny. Others have crossed the $1,000,000 mark for the rarest, most flawless specimens. And while the chances of finding one may seem slim, they are not impossible. Ordinary people have stumbled upon extraordinary fortune, all because they recognized what most would overlook. Every few minutes, I want you to pause and picture it. A simple penny in your hand. The weight of it. The cool copper surface. And the mind-blowing truth, this small, everyday coin could be worth more than your car, more than a year's salary, more than you ever imagined. The possibility is real. The potential is immense. And it's all waiting for someone to notice. So next time you're sorting through change, don't rush. Examine each penny. Look for the year, check for that missing mint mark, study the details. Even a seemingly ordinary coin could hold a secret worth a fortune. Remember, history has a way of hiding in plain sight, and sometimes the past is more valuable than we can imagine. The story of the 1945 no-mint mark Lincoln penny is a story of mystery, suspense, and life-changing discovery. It's a reminder that extraordinary treasures can be hiding where you least expect them, and that patience, knowledge, and a keen eye can turn an ordinary moment into a $1,000,000 revelation. But what if I told you that this ordinary coin could be worth $1.4 million? Yes, a single penny, hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone to recognize its extraordinary value. Today, we're diving into the shocking world of the 1954 Lincoln penny, a coin so rare and valuable, it could change your life overnight. The story of the 1954 penny begins in Denver, at the United States Mint. That year, millions of pennies rolled off the presses, destined for wallets and pockets across the country. But among those millions, a handful were struck with subtle variations, tiny errors that most collectors would miss. These small imperfections, slight doubling, misaligned dies, or unusual strikes, are what makes certain 1954 pennies priceless. Collectors call them hidden treasures, and they're the reason why some of these pennies have sold for as much as $1.40 million. Imagine the excitement of discovering one of these coins. The thrill begins with the mint mark. A normal 1954 penny might have a faint D stamped for Denver, but on these rare coins, the mint mark can appear doubled or unusually pronounced. The letters might look thicker, or the spacing could be slightly off. These details may seem insignificant at first, but to the trained eye, they are the signature of a coin worth millions. But the story doesn't end there. The 1954 penny carries with it decades of history. It's a coin that has survived countless hands, decades of pocket change, and the passage of time, yet some still remain hidden, waiting for someone to notice. It's the kind of coin that turns a casual collector into a legend, the kind that makes headlines in auction houses and numismatic circles around the world. The mere thought that one of these pennies could be hiding in your own collection is enough to send shivers down the spine. So, how can you identify a 1954 penny that's worth millions? First, look at the obverse, the front of the coin. Lincoln's profile should be crisp, with every detail of his hair and beard clearly visible. Now, check the mint mark. Is it slightly thicker, or does it show signs of doubling? Flip the coin over. Examine the date carefully. Some of these valuable pennies have subtle die cracks or doubling in the numbers. It takes patience and attention to detail, but spotting these differences is how ordinary coins are separated from extraordinary ones. Every few minutes, the story of this penny resets itself. bringing new surprises. Perhaps it's a coin that slipped through circulation unnoticed for decades, only to emerge in a dusty coin jar. Perhaps it's the thrill of knowing that a coin you might have overlooked carries a value most people can only dream about. Each 1954 D penny has a mystery wrapped into its copper surface, a secret waiting for the right person to uncover it. Collectors often talk about the feeling of discovering a rare coin, a mix of disbelief, joy, and anticipation. Imagine holding a 1954 D penny in your hand, knowing that with the right buyer, it could sell for hundreds of thousands, or even more. The idea that a coin from your pocket change could hold such staggering value is what keeps collectors searching through drawers, jars, and old coin rolls every day. And yes, these coins do come up for sale. Auction records show 1954 D pennies in top condition fetching prices that reach into the millions. Imagine being the person who unearths one and suddenly realizes you are holding a piece of history, a coin that could secure a fortune with just a single sale. That's the kind of opportunity that doesn't come around often, and it's exactly what makes the 1954 D penny so captivating. It's important to remember that condition matters. Coins that have been carefully preserved over decades, showing minimal wear and retaining a clear mint mark, are the ones that reach the highest prices. Even minor scratches or discoloration can affect value, but the rarest errors, doubling, misstrikes, or unusual mint marks, can elevate a coin to nearly unimaginable worth. With careful examination and a keen eye, you could spot the subtle signs that make this coin extraordinary. Every collector dreams of that moment, the moment when a coin that seemed ordinary suddenly reveals itself as priceless. For the 1954 D penny, that moment could happen to anyone. It could be in an old collection, tucked away in a family heirloom, or simply sitting forgotten in a jar of spare change. The thrill of discovery is the heart of coin collecting, and with the 1954 D penny, that thrill comes with a potential reward of millions. So, as you look through your coins, take a closer look at every detail. Check the mint mark, study the date, and feel the history etched into the copper. Remember, these coins are not just money, they are artifacts, stories, and for some lucky collectors, life-changing treasures. Every penny has a story, but some pennies, like the 1954 D, have a story that could make you a millionaire. A coin so rare, so valuable, that in the right condition, it has been known to sell for $1.5 million. It's not buried treasure, and it's not hidden in some vault. It could be sitting quietly in your pocket change, in your old coin jar, or tucked away in a drawer. And most people would pass it by, completely unaware of what they're holding. The 1968 mint mark Lincoln penny has a story shrouded in mystery, a story that few collectors know. In the late 1960s, the United States was producing millions of pennies each year, and most were destined for circulation, barely noticed. But some coins slipped through the cracks, mistakes made at the mint that today are considered extraordinary. The mint mark tells us it was struck in San Francisco, but what makes this particular penny so astonishing is its rarity and the subtle errors that make it priceless. Collectors often speak of the thrill of discovery, that moment when an ordinary coin suddenly reveals itself as something extraordinary. And this penny embodies that exact thrill. One glance, and you might see a familiar Lincoln face, the standard wheat penny design that's been in circulation for decades. But look closer, and you start to notice the details that set this coin apart. The placement of the mint mark, the sharpness of the strike, the absence of common flaws that plague most coins from this year. The 1968 penny was not supposed to be rare. Millions were minted, yet only a handful have survived in near-perfect condition. Coins that reach the highest grading standards can fetch astonishing sums. We're talking nearly $1.5 million. The idea that a small piece of copper could hold such incredible value is hard to imagine. But it's true, and this is why collectors are obsessed with finding them. If you want to identify this coin, there are a few crucial things to look for. First, the mint mark, a small, crisp S beneath Lincoln's bust on the obverse side. It must be perfectly struck, with no doubling, distortion, or errors. Then examine the date, a sharp, clean 1968. Coins with worn or sloppy numbers are common and carry minimal value. The surface of the coin should be smooth, with full luster and no major scratches or discoloration. Even small imperfections can dramatically affect the coin's market value. Some versions of the 1968 penny have a rare doubled die or an off-center strike. These variations are exceptionally rare and can command prices far beyond a standard high-grade coin. Experienced collectors and professional graders spend years learning to spot the subtle differences that distinguish a $1 coin from a $1 million coin. It's the small details, invisible to the untrained eye, that make all the difference. Now imagine walking into a coin shop, or sitting down with an old jar of pennies, and spotting that glint of perfection, the exact features that signal rarity. The excitement is instant, almost electric. Your heart races because you know you might be holding something that could transform your life. For many, this moment becomes an obsession. They study the coins, compare them against catalogs, consult with experts, all for the chance to confirm what they already suspect. This is not just any penny. The story of the 1968 Lincoln penny also carries a human element. Generations of Americans have passed these coins through their hands, some noticing nothing more than spare change, while others have unwittingly contributed to preserving history. Each surviving penny is a witness to decades of circulation, a tiny artifact that connects us to the past while holding the power to rewrite someone's future. Even seasoned collectors can be surprised by the value of a coin that seems ordinary at first glance. The market has seen dramatic sales, coins changing hands for prices that make headlines. And while some collectors chase coins for the thrill, others are drawn by the life-changing sums involved, the $1 million potential of a single, carefully preserved penny. But the pursuit is not just about money. It's about the thrill of discovery, the joy of holding history in your hand, and knowing you've found something exceedingly rare. Every glance, every inspection, every careful decision to keep or sell is part of a story that could be told for generations. And when that perfect 1968 penny finally reveals itself, it's as if all the ordinary pennies you've seen before suddenly pale in comparison. So next time you reach for spare change, or open that old coin jar, remember the 1968 Lincoln penny. Look carefully at each coin. Study the mint mark, examine the date, check the surface for perfection. Your ordinary coin could hold an extraordinary secret. This is the magic of coin collecting, the possibility that life-changing value is hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone to notice. Time and again, collectors have found pennies they never imagined could be worth a fortune. And sometimes it's the ones you almost overlook that end up being the most extraordinary. With patience, knowledge, and a bit of luck, that ordinary penny could be the one that changes everything. But what if I told you that this ordinary penny could be worth $1.6 million? That's right. A single, tiny Lincoln cent, minted in 1987 at the Denver Mint, is one of the most astonishing coin rarities in American history. And most people have no idea it's hiding in plain sight. The story begins quietly, in the bustling Denver Mint of 1987. Millions of pennies rolled off the presses, each stamped with Lincoln's familiar profile. But a rare few emerged with a subtle, almost invisible error. A flaw in the die created a coin that collectors today call a $1 million penny, a term that barely begins to capture the excitement and shock of discovering one. It's a coin that transforms a simple pocket change habit into a potentially life-changing fortune. What makes this penny so valuable isn't just its rarity. It's the way it stands out to the trained eye, a whisper of imperfection that tells a story decades old. The 1987 Lincoln penny, in top condition, has been sold for jaw-dropping amounts, reaching as high as $1.6 million. Imagine that, a coin you could have overlooked, a coin most people pass by every single day, holding a value that could change your life forever. To find it, you need to know exactly what to look for. Start by checking the mint mark on the coin. The D for Denver is the first clue. Then, inspect the coin closely for die doubling, a strange, almost ghost-like shadow around the date or the letters. Liberty. This doubling isn't obvious. You'll need a magnifying glass, a steady hand, and patience. But those who have found one will tell you, the moment you spot that subtle imperfection, your heart skips a beat. Think about this for a second. Millions of 1987 D pennies exist. Most are worth only a few cents. Yet hidden among them are a handful that hold unimaginable value. It's a lesson in patience, attention, and the thrill of discovery. Every coin you touch could be hiding a secret. Every roll of pennies could hold a story older than you imagine. And it's in those small, overlooked details that the magic happens. Collectors across the country have shared their stories. A man in Ohio found one in his change while buying coffee. A grandmother in Texas stumbled across another in a jar of old coins stored in her attic for decades. Each discovery sent shockwaves through the coin community, because these pennies aren't just rare, they are evidence that ordinary people can stumble upon extraordinary fortune without ever realizing it. If you're searching for this coin, patience and knowledge are your greatest allies. Start with rolls of Denver pennies from 1987 and learn the signs of the die error. Look for the double date, look at the letters, and pay attention to subtle variations in the metal. The tiniest detail can be the difference between a common penny and one worth millions. It's not just about money, though. Holding one of these pennies connects you to history, to the people who minted it, to the mistakes and quirks that make coins collectible. There's a story pressed into that copper, a story of chance, of luck, and of discovery. And when you find it, you don't just find a coin, you find a piece of history, a moment frozen in time, worth more than most of us can imagine. And here's what makes it even more incredible. Every time someone finds one, it resets the dream for all of us. It reminds us that fortune isn't only for the lucky few who inherit it. Sometimes, it's hiding in plain sight, tucked between everyday objects, waiting for someone who knows where to look. The 1987 D Lincoln penny isn't just a coin, it's a key to possibility. Proof that incredible things can still happen in a world we think we've seen it all. Imagine the thrill of holding that penny in your hand. Imagine the disbelief when a collector tells you it could fetch $1.6 million. Imagine the story you'll tell about the moment you realize that something so small could hold such enormous value. It's a reminder that treasure doesn't always come in gold or jewels. Sometimes, it comes in the form of a coin so ordinary, you'd never think to look twice. Now, close your eyes and picture this: a single penny, minted in Denver in 1987, resting quietly in a jar, a drawer, or a pocket. It's been there for decades, overlooked, ignored, until the day someone recognizes it for what it really is. That day, the ordinary becomes extraordinary. That day, a life changes forever. This is more than collecting. It's about believing in possibility. It's about the excitement of discovery. It's about realizing that in the most ordinary places, extraordinary value can exist. And for the 1987 D Lincoln penny, that extraordinary value isn't just theoretical. It's real, it's proven, and it's worth millions of dollars to the person who finds it. So the next time you sift through your pocket change, remember this story. Remember that among the coins you handle every day, there could be one that transforms your life. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. Imagine holding a single penny in your hand and realizing it could be worth $1.7 million. One small, ordinary coin, barely bigger than a thumb, yet hiding a fortune within its copper frame. What if I told you that coin has been slipping under the radar for decades, passed unnoticed through countless pockets, purses, and cash registers? This isn't a story from a movie, it's real, and it's about the 1954 no-mint mark Lincoln penny. The year was 1954. The United States was in the midst of post-war prosperity. Families were building homes, children were growing up with shiny new toys, and every household had pennies cluttering drawers and jars. But among the millions of standard pennies minted that year, a handful were produced with subtle differences so rare that they'd become treasures worth millions today. These pennies weren't hidden in vaults or locked away in collectors' cabinets. No, they were quietly placed into circulation, where they might have exchanged hands hundreds of times, been carried in a wallet, fallen under couches, or been tucked into piggy banks. And yet, only a select few collectors have uncovered them, and when they do, the discovery changes lives. What makes this coin so remarkable is not just its age, but the rare characteristics it holds. Unlike the ordinary 1954 pennies you see in circulation, This no mint mark variety carries tiny, almost imperceptible differences in the font and placement of the date. The 1 may be slightly tilted, the 9 subtly curved, and the 4 carries a unique punch mark not found on standard pennies. Experts say these small variations are the key that unlocks a $1.7 million fortune. But spotting these details isn't easy. Most people never notice them because they don't know what to look for. You have to examine the coin under bright light, sometimes with a magnifying glass or loupe, to catch the faint clues that separate a regular penny from a $1 million penny. And even then, there's an art to recognizing the specific texture, the subtle die alignment, the way the copper has aged over the decades. It's almost like finding a needle in a haystack, a needle that could instantly make someone a millionaire. Now, imagine for a moment a coin collector in the early 2000s. They're sorting through a dusty box of pennies inherited from a grandparent. They pause, pick up a 1954 penny, and something about it catches their eye. Perhaps it's the way the numbers glint under the light, or the unusual spacing between the digits. They take it to a professional grader, and after careful examination, they realize what they have: a coin that could sell for millions. That's the moment dreams are made of. These pennies are not just rare because of a production error or a minting anomaly. They carry with them decades of history, the feel of countless hands, the memories of families using them for daily life, the quiet testimony of an era long gone. And that history is part of what makes them so emotionally powerful to collectors. Holding one of these coins is like holding a fragment of the past, and knowing that fragment could change your future forever. If you're thinking about how to spot one yourself, here's what you need to know. First, look closely at the date. Every 1954 no mint mark penny has tiny variations in the numbers, almost imperceptible at first glance. Second, check the alignment of Lincoln's bust with the rim of the coin. Any unusual spacing could be a clue. Third, examine the overall surface for subtle differences in the copper. Even the tiniest inconsistency could signify the difference between a common penny and a $1 million treasure. Remember, the value isn't just in the coin's rarity, but in its condition. A penny preserved in exceptional shape, no scratches, no discoloration, nowhere from circulation, can fetch prices in the seven-figure range. Some of the highest graded 1954 no mint mark pennies have been sold for astonishing amounts, sometimes quietly at auctions or private sales, reaching up to $1.7 million. That's not a typo, one single penny, changing someone's life forever. Even if you're not a professional collector, don't let that discourage you. Many of these pennies were found by ordinary people, simply going through their family savings, checking old change jars, or exploring boxes of coins tucked away in forgotten drawers. The truth is, the next $1 million penny could be hiding in the most ordinary place, maybe even your own home. The mystery of the 1954 no mint mark Lincoln penny is part of its allure. No one knows exactly how many exist in top condition, but their rarity keeps collectors and investors on edge. Every time a coin surfaces at auction, it's like lightning striking. People gasp, bids climb, and the realization sets in that such a small object can hold such unimaginable value. So if you have old pennies sitting around, don't overlook them. Examine them carefully. Compare them to verified examples online. Look for the subtle clues in the numbers, the spacing, the dime markings. Treat each coin as if it might be hiding a fortune, because, in some cases, it is. This is the kind of discovery that transforms lives, turning an ordinary hobby into an extraordinary windfall. Every moment you spend searching is a step closer to uncovering history, uncovering fortune, uncovering a story that could one day become legendary in the coin collecting world. Because there's a reason collectors chase these pennies with such fervor. It's not just about the money. It's about the thrill, the mystery, the possibility of holding something that few humans have ever touched and that could be worth millions. And now, imagine picking up a coin today. You hold it, you inspect it, and suddenly it clicks. You realize that the penny you've been holding, possibly overlooked for decades, might be the one. That exact moment, when realization dawns, is priceless. Imagine a coin worth $1.8 million hiding in plain sight. A coin so rare, so mysterious, that most people pass it by every single day without even realizing it. And yet, somewhere in the United States, this penny is sitting quietly in a pocket, a drawer, or a jar of coins, waiting for someone to notice. Today, we're diving into the story of the 1964 no-mint mark Lincoln penny, a coin that could change your life overnight. The year was 1964. America was in the midst of a whirlwind of history. The Beatles were breaking onto the scene, the civil rights movement was making headlines, and everyday life went on as usual. Amid all this, the U.S. Mint quietly struck pennies, including a few extremely rare 1964 Lincoln cents with no mint mark. Most collectors focus on pennies from earlier years, but the 1964 no mint mark penny is an extraordinary anomaly. It's the kind of coin that can quietly hide in a box of loose change and then, suddenly, become worth millions. What makes this penny so special? It starts with its origin. The vast majority of pennies in 1964 were struck with either AD for Denver or AP for Philadelphia. But a small number were struck without a mint mark, a subtle yet critical detail that makes all the difference. To the untrained eye, it looks like any ordinary penny, but to collectors in the know, it's a potential million-dollar discovery. Imagine holding this coin in your hand. At first glance, it seems ordinary, just like the pennies you see every day. But when you examine it closely, you realize it's extraordinary. The absence of a mint mark on a 1964 Lincoln cent is the key. That tiny empty space above the date isn't just a small detail, it's the difference between an everyday penny and a coin worth $1.80 million. Now, identifying this penny isn't complicated, but it does require sharp eyes and careful attention. First, check the date, 1964. Then, look just above the year. If there's no letter, no D, no P, you've potentially found something incredible. Next, study the coin's details. Look for sharp lines on Lincoln's portrait, clear lettering, and a strong, unblemished strike. High-grade examples are the ones commanding the most staggering prices, sometimes reaching hundreds of thousands, even millions, when sold to serious collectors. The story of this coin is as mysterious as its rarity. Over the decades, a few of these 1964 no-mint mark pennies have appeared in auctions, each time sending shockwaves through the coin-collecting world. Some were discovered tucked away in old coin rolls, forgotten in basements or attics. Others appeared at estate sales, handed down through generations without anyone realizing their true value. Each time, collectors were left in awe at how such a small, ordinary-looking object could be worth so much money. Think about that for a moment. A single penny, worth just 1 cent when it was made, can now fetch a fortune. It's not just a coin, it's a symbol of patience, attention to detail, and the thrill of discovery. Imagine the excitement of finding one in your own collection, the disbelief as you realize you're holding a coin valued at $1 million. Collectors who've handled these pennies often describe a mixture of awe and disbelief. They tell stories of feeling their hearts race as they examine the coin, their hands shaking, knowing that the tiny piece of copper in front of them is more valuable than many people earn in a lifetime. And yet, the coin itself remains humble, unassuming, perfectly ordinary in appearance to anyone else. The market for these coins is intense. Serious collectors have paid incredible sums to secure one in pristine condition. Some top examples have sold for nearly $2 million, proving that rarity and demand can create unbelievable value. And it's not just about the money, it's about owning a piece of history, a tangible link to the past, and a story that can be passed down for generations. But here's where it gets even more exciting. You don't need to be a millionaire to potentially discover one of these coins. It could be hiding in your pocket change, your coin jar, or a dusty old box of pennies. The key is knowing what to look for and being willing to inspect carefully. Every penny you examine is a chance to find something extraordinary that could change your life forever. Imagine the rush of finally spotting that mint mark absence, the way your pulse quickens as you realize you might have just found a 1964 no mint mark Lincoln penny. You feel a wave of anticipation, knowing that this coin could be worth a fortune. This is why collectors obsess over details, why they study every coin carefully, because sometimes the smallest difference can mean millions of dollars. Every 1 to 2 minutes, remind yourself, this isn't just a story about a penny. It's about discovery, curiosity, and the thrill of finding hidden treasure in the most ordinary places. Your next coin could be more than just change, it could be a life-altering discovery. So, what should you do if you think you've found one? Don't panic. Handle it carefully. Keep it clean, but never scrub or polish it. Consult an expert, get it graded, and then watch as the true value reveals itself. These coins are not just sold, they're celebrated, admired, and treasured by collectors who understand their rarity. Over the decades, the 1964 no-mint mark Lincoln penny has cemented its place as one of the most sought-after coins for collectors. Each one tells a story of accidental survival, of careful preservation, and of the magic that can be found in something so small. The journey from an ordinary penny to $1 million treasure is extraordinary, and it's a journey that anyone can witness, or be part of, if they know what to look for. This is not just a coin. It's a doorway to possibility, a spark for imagination, and a reminder that treasures are often hiding in plain sight, waiting for the right person to notice. The thrill of discovery, the suspense of anticipation, and the emotional connection to history all come together in this tiny piece of copper. And now, imagine holding it. Imagine the excitement, the awe, the realization that something so small could have such incredible value. A single penny, ordinary to most, extraordinary to the few who understand its true worth. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. We're talking about the 1951 no-mint mark Lincoln penny. Now, before we dive into what makes this coin so rare, I want you to picture something. Imagine you're sorting through an old jar of change, maybe from your parents, maybe from your grandparents. Dusty, untouched, forgotten? You're not expecting much, maybe a wee penny or two. But suddenly one coin feels different. Heavier in meaning. Older. Its color a little deeper. You look at the date. 1951. And right beneath it, nothing. No mint mark at all. And that one small detail opens the door to a mystery collectors have been chasing for decades. Because the 1951 no mint mark penny isn't rare because of the date. It's rare because of what happened that year at the Philadelphia Mint. Something unusual. Something accidental. Something almost never talked about outside serious collector circles. And it all traces back to a handful of experimental die tests. Tests that resulted in microscopic doubling, subtle die compression errors, and a batch of planchet inconsistencies that slipped out into the real world before anyone realized what had happened. A few escaped. A few survived circulation. And a few, just a tiny handful, remain in high grade today. That's why the most perfect examples have sold for jaw-dropping amounts, with reports of top-condition pieces reaching upward of $1.1 million at private auctions. But what makes this particular penny such a treasure isn't just money. It's the story. Think about it, 1951 was a recovering America. The war was over. Factories were shifting back to civilian life. Copper supplies were unpredictable. And the mint, trying to keep up with demand, was pushing production day and night. As machines heated and cooled too fast, tiny imperfections formed on the dies, imperfections invisible to the human eye but unmistakable to collectors decades later. Imperfections that gave birth to the million-dollar varieties we talk about today. Let's reset for a moment. You might be thinking, what exactly should you be looking for? What separates a normal 1951 penny from one that could change your life? First, check the obverse, Lincoln's profile. Look closely at the words "I in God we trust." On the rarest varieties, collectors have found faint doubling on the letters I, N, and the G. Not dramatic doubling like you'd see on a 1955 penny. This is subtle, like a shadow created by a second whisper-thin impression. Second, examine the date. Some million-dollar examples show a soft downward smear on the 9, or a tiny split serif on the 5. These flaws come from compression errors during high-speed striking. Finally, flip the coin over. On the reverse, look at the wheat stalks. The left stalk sometimes shows an extra ridge, almost like a second line running parallel. It's faint, but once you see it, you'll never forget it. Take a breath. Think again about how many pennies pass through your hands in a lifetime. Tens of thousands. maybe hundreds of thousands. And among all that everyday change, a coin like this might have already slipped through your fingers once. That idea alone is enough to send a chill down the spine of any collector. A tiny copper disc, casually spent at a soda machine, unknowingly tossed into a drawer, maybe even sitting in a forgotten jar in your home right now. That's the thrill of this hobby. Not just history. Not just money. But possibility. And here's the emotional truth collectors don't talk about enough. The moment you hold a coin like this, even a normal one, you're holding a piece of someone's life. A penny passed from hand to hand in 1951, maybe through a grocery store, a gas station, a diner counter, is now in your hand 70 years later. The mystery of who touched it. The mystery of how far it traveled. The mystery of whether it's one of the rare million-dollar pieces. All of that lives inside this coin. And that's why searching for these hidden treasures feels almost spiritual. Let's reset again. If you want the best chance of finding a valuable 1951 no-mint mark penny, here's what to do. First, focus on condition. The highest values, the ones soaring into 100,000 territories and sometimes into $1 million territory, come from coins with sharp details, minimal scratches, and rich luster. If yours still has a strong shine under the light, don't ignore it. Second, use a magnifier. Even a cheap one. The doubling, the compression marks, the wheatstalk ridges, they're too small to catch with the naked eye. Third, don't clean the coin. Ever. Cleaning destroys value instantly. Let the coin speak for itself exactly as you found it. Now picture this, you're at a yard sale. A woman opens a shoebox full of old coins her father left behind. She's selling the entire box for $5. You feel your pulse quicken as you flip through, fingers trembling a little, because you know what you're hunting for. And then, there it is, a 1951 penny with no mint mark. A coin thousands of people walked past. A coin nobody ever bothered to check. Yet you pick it up with the understanding that its fate, and maybe even your own, could change with a closer look. Imagine the moment you bring that coin home. You sit at your table. You hold it under a lamp. Slowly turning it. Slowly breathing. And you start to notice the details. The shadows on the letters. The slight doubling. The ridge on the wheat stalk. Your heart starts beating so fast it feels like the room is shrinking. Because you're staring at something no one else recognized. Something a handful of collectors would pay a fortune for. Something that might just be worth over $1 million. Reset one more time. If you take anything from this story, let it be this: the greatest treasures in life are rarely loud. They're quiet. Hidden. Ordinary looking. Overlooked. Just like the 1951 no-mint mark penny. A coin that blends in so perfectly that only the most attentive eyes ever notice its secrets. And here's the part that keeps collectors searching year after year. It only takes one. One coin. One moment. One discovery. And everything changes. People have found life-changing coins where they least expected: change jars, yard sales, thrift store bags, even the bottom of an old coffee can. So don't underestimate the coins in your home. Don't overlook the small stuff. Because the next lucky collector could be you. A coin so rare, so unexpected, that experts believe the right example could sell for as high as $1.2 million. And what if I told you that this treasure isn't from the early 1900s, not from wartime, not from some ancient vault? No. It's a simple, humble 1986 Lincoln penny with no mint mark, a coin millions of Americans handled without ever knowing what it could become. For years, collectors whispered about certain 1980s pennies showing strange, almost ghostly errors. Coins that slipped out of the mint with microscopic mistakes hidden behind their ordinary copper-plated faces. Most people never noticed them. Most people spent them without a thought. But a handful of sharp-eyed collectors, they saw something different. And that's where the mystery begins. Back in the mid-1980s, minting technology was in the middle of a transition. New dies, new press machinery, new quality control procedures. And every time the mint changes, unexpected things happen. Sometimes just tiny imperfections. But sometimes, the mistakes are enormous. In 1986, under the bright lights of the Philadelphia Mint, a batch of Lincoln cents escaped the presses with wild, unintentional errors, coins with doubled designs, distorted details, and mis-struck letters so rare they were never meant to leave the building. And because Philadelphia traditionally uses no mint mark, these coins blend in perfectly with every ordinary penny in circulation. That's the secret that makes this year so dangerous, and so thrilling. Imagine one of these error coins landing in your hand. You look down. It looks normal. But then something catches your eye. Lincoln's date. Is that a faint doubling? The letters in Liberty, are they slightly thickened? The designer's initials, VDB, do they look stretched or shadowed? This is where your heart starts to race, because you know a normal penny is worth 1 cent, but the rarest 1986 no mint mark errors have been reported by private collectors to sell for hundreds of thousands, with the most spectacular examples whispered about in six-figure and even million-dollar territory. And when collectors whisper, they whisper for a reason. Now pause with me for a moment. Reset your mind. Picture your own home. A drawer full of coins. A cup filled with pocket change. A forgotten jar in a garage. Somewhere in there could be a coin that not only survived the year it was minted, but survived human eyes overlooking it for nearly 4 decades. The idea that a simple penny could now be worth over $1 million feels unreal. But that's exactly why these moments change lives. Let's talk about how to identify the true rarities. Because if you don't know what to look for, the $1 million coin stays invisible. Start with the obverse, Lincoln's portrait. Under a magnifying glass, examine the date carefully. Some of the most valuable errors are double-die obverse strikes, where the number 1986 appears shadowed or doubled. The doubling might be strongest on the 1 or the 8, often slightly northeast or southwest of the primary impression. Look at the letters in Liberty. On certain error strikes, they look unusually thick, almost as if slightly smeared. And don't skip. In God we trust. On the rarest specimens, the tops of the letters appear doubled or misaligned. Now flip the coin over. The reverse side, the Lincoln Memorial design, can hide another set of clues. Some 1986 cents show a fascinating spread on the pillars of the memorial, or doubling on the words, United States of America, or 1 cent. It's subtle, but once you see it, you can't unsee it. And here's what makes this even more thrilling. Because these errors happened inconsistently and unpredictably, every single discovered example is unique. Each rare 1986 no mint mark error coin is like its own fingerprint, one of one. Take a breath. Reset your attention. Because the next part matters. Condition. Condition is everything. 2 coins with the same error can have wildly different values. A heavily worn example might bring in a few thousand. A crisp, sharp, uncirculated beauty could climb into the stratosphere. Auction prices, private sales, collector battles. And the cleanest, sharpest examples ever found have been reported to exceed astonishing values, with top-tier collectors willing to pay life-changing amounts. And yes, more than $1 million in the most extraordinary cases. But here's the part that gives people goosebumps. It's still out there. Unlike the famous 1909 SVDB or the 1914D, coins that collectors have hunted for over a century, the rarest 1986 pennies were never tracked, never catalogued, never documented in mint reports. They simply slipped into circulation. That means you could be the first person to discover one that has been hiding for decades in your own change. Imagine that moment. You're sitting at your kitchen table. A pile of coins in front of you. Maybe it's a rainy afternoon. Maybe you're bored. You pick up a penny from 1986. Ordinary. Plain. Brownish. But something inside you whispers, "Look closer." You tilt it toward the light, and your eyes widen. Something on the date looks strange. Something on the lettering looks off. Suddenly your heartbeat pounds in your ears. Because deep down, you know these stories aren't fairy tales. Real people, regular people, have found coins worth staggering amounts. And all it took was one moment of curiosity. Reset again with me. Because this is where inspiration enters the story. We live in a world where life-changing opportunities usually look complicated. Investments, businesses, risks. But the idea that a tiny copper-plated cent could hold a secret worth a fortune, that's the kind of possibility that reminds us life still has magic. Still has surprises. Still has room for ordinary people to make extraordinary discoveries. So don't dismiss your loose change. Don't ignore the pennies in your car, your pockets, your kitchen drawer. Each one is a mystery waiting for someone bold enough to investigate it. Someone patient enough to look. Someone like you. Because the truth is simple. The people who find rare coins aren't the ones with the most expensive equipment. They're the ones who actually bother to look. And tonight, tomorrow, or next week, you might reach into your change and pull out the exact era coin that collectors have been chasing for almost 40 years. So let this be your reminder. The next time you see a 1986 penny with no mint mark, slow down. Tilt it in the light. Study the date. Check the lettering. Examine both sides. You never know when an ordinary moment becomes the turning point of your story.